Ladies and gentlemen, the guy at the end of the bar proudly presents the Dantannas Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice. And now the two men to take you to new heights in sports conversation, Nick Cellini and Matt Chernoff.
And good evening and welcome to the show we call The Late Shift, brought to you by Dantannas. That's Matt Chernoff.
Point at me.
I am Nick Cellini. Joining us in just a few minutes from Bleacher Report, Barrett Sallee to talk about some spring games around the Southeast and beyond. Steve Weish from the NFL Network also going to join us to talk some NFL. And, of course, what would a late shift be without Ray Giudice later on in the program as well. Matt, let's start by talking about the championship game played on Monday night, as it was Michigan in the first end of the first half before Louisville woke up. And the Cardinals, as a result, win their first national title since the year 1986. I'm surprised Rick Pitino, this stat stands out to me, Matt. First coach to win two national titles at two different schools.
Yeah, no, we'll touch on that in a second. A couple of thoughts on the game itself. Surprising to get performances out of a Michigan backup. Spike Albrecht, who helped fill some minutes because Trey Burke was in foul trouble, and you can even question Beeline for leaving him on the bench so long. Then you have Luke Hancock off the bench for Louisville, giving them some big minutes, especially at the end of the first half, to take them from a 12-point deficit to a lead at the half. Louisville would go on in the second half to a fun game to the win. Louisville gets a championship, as Nick said, their first since '86. Pitino now, he joins that special group. Now, as you said, he's the first to ever do this in two different places, but at that special group of multiple championship winners, guys like Calhoun, Boeheim, certainly Coach K. If you already didn't think Pitino was one of the greats, it's now solidified.
The perfect weekend it was for Rick Pitino. He finds out he's going to the Hall of Fame. His horse wins the Santa Anita Derby, so now that horse will compete in the Kentucky Derby. His son, Richard, gets the job at Minnesota, and then, of course, he wins the championship. But the question is, where does this Final Four rank when you talk about history? I will say this, when you talk about recent history, I think you have to go back to it being the best Final Four since the year 2008 when Kansas beat Memphis.
I'm going to go a step further. It's the greatest Final Four in the history of college basketball. No, I don't know if that's true, but it was competitive. It was fun. You have the big comeback with Louisville and Wichita State, the Syracuse matchup with Michigan, the two contrasting styles, and then an entertaining championship Monday. And for us here selfishly in Atlanta, I thought the weekend came off beautifully. Weather, concerts, events, and then a huge crowd with the Dome now putting the court in the middle. So you got 70,000+ people in the building. I guarantee up at the top they couldn't see, but they'll say they were there one day to enjoy it.
And Sting and the Dave Matthews Band playing downtown in Centennial Olympic Park. Free concerts. Roxanne.
I'm going to ask you not to do that again.
You don't have to put on the red light.
I knew he wasn't going to listen. All right, let's get to the baseball. You want to keep going? You almost done? All right, let's get to the baseball, where the Braves are singing a happy tune right now. They're off to a great start. And it's been on the back of Justin Upton, who in his first 7 games as a Brave becomes the first Brave since 1916 to hit 6 home runs. He has literally carried this team on his back. You've had Hayward struggle. You've had B.J. Upton struggle. Uggla's not going yet. You've been without McCann. Now Freeman and Simmons have been banged up. Here's a guy who can carry you for weeks at a time. We all liked Martin Prado. His best attribute was being a versatile guy. This is an MVP-style guy.
Every little thing he does is magic. It seems that way for Justin Upton right now, and you're right. A lot of people were poo-pooing that trade. Martin Prado, he's a clubhouse leader. Randall Delgado, he's got a great arm. Randall Delgado is down pitching at AAA, and Martin Prado will hit about 10, 12 home runs, while Justin Upton has the potential to be the best outfielder in the National League.
Here's the other part, as I said. This is the scary thing if you're a Braves fan and the rest of the National League. Upton's been great, but everything else is off to a slow start. Some guys are slow starters. This happened to Hayward a year ago. As of Game 7, he's hitting under 100. Jason is a guy who picks it up as he goes along. They'll hope that happens. B.J. Upton off to a slow start, and Dan Uggla, not a surprise, kind of slow going here. So, Nick, imagine when these guys do get going, just how dangerous this offense really can be.
Every move Jason Hayward makes, I will be watching him, because I think sooner or later he's going to turn his season around. Freddie Freeman not happy with being placed on the DL, letting everybody know on Sunday morning inside the Braves clubhouse as such. But look, you have to protect the player from himself from time to time, and that was the case. Andrelton Simmons, the concern with him is it's always going to be something because he just plays all out all the time. While you respect that, you also concern yourself with that because he's going to miss time.
We'll talk to Steve Wyche, as Nick mentioned, from the NFL Network later, but the Falcons made a big move last week, and a surprising move, releasing their starting right tackle, Tyson Clabo. Clabo, while maybe not the best right tackle in the league, consistent, solid, and he was a guy that the Falcons didn't save a ton of money on, so it's kind of a head-scratcher of a move, which leaves you now with the second-year player Lamar Holmes, maybe Mike Johnson, who could kick outside and play tackle, or, Nick, do they address the tackle position early in the draft?
We're sending out an SOS for a right tackle because Lamar Holmes seems to be the most viable option right now. This move did come out of nowhere, and you're talking about a guy that was a Pro Bowler back in 2010. Now, the talk is the Falcons want to become more athletic on that offensive line. I just think it's a money move, like you said.
Well, it seems like a salary cap move, but it's also one that the Falcons could have avoided if they would have had a deal done, you would think, with Matt Ryan. That deal's not done yet. We'll see if it happens. The other thing that a move with Matt Ryan, extending his deal and giving him the big money, it would allow you to make a couple of other small moves. There are still some names out there, Nicholas. Guys like Carlos Dansby, who could be an upgrade for this team. He's older, but a Charles Woodson. And I still believe, and I know we differ, I don't think John Abraham's in their plans, but certainly you could get him back cheap if you had that extra money to spend.
I love Carlos Dansby. He certainly would be an upgrade. Now, Charles Woodson said, I'm older and I'm injury prone, and that's why nobody assigned me. You think so, doctor? That's a brilliant observation. John Abraham, I know, sent out a tweet that he wasn't happy with the deal that he signed before, but he kind of said the same thing when he re-signed with the Falcons last year. Dansby, I think, is the guy. If I had to choose one of the three, you've got to have a middle linebacker because you don't have one right now, with all due respect to Akeem Dent.
Yeah, he is what he is. And even at the corner right now, you have Robert McClain as we sit here in April, who was a nice pickup last year, but really would be one of your starters. Now, we'll talk to Barrett Sallee from the Bleacher Report about Georgia's Spring Day. He was there in Athens. It was reported to be about 45,000 fans, which was a record crowd to see the Dogs, which tells me this fan base is energized about this offense especially. You bring back a Heisman Trophy candidate in Aaron Murray. You bring back a stud running back in Gurley. You have all these weapons at wide receiver, including a transfer in Jonathan Rump. Nick, the sky's the limit for this offense.
Jonathan Rump had 4 catches, 98 yards, a couple of scores, big physical receiver, and a young physical defense as well. And those two aren't members of the defense, and neither is that kid up there. But Aaron Murray was very efficient, leading the team right down the field on a 75-yard drive to open the scrimmage. After that, it was rather conservative, and don't read too much into the fact that the defense got the better end of the offense in this one because you're not seeing the full package.
Well, spring games are usually harmless throwaways, except for what happened with Nebraska, and I thought this was a great moment. I want you guys to take a look at this video. Jack Hoffman, a 7-year-old who got a chance to show off his speed. He has brain cancer. He had a week off from his chemo. So what a classy move by Nebraska. They put him out there. He takes the handoff from Taylor Martinez, and there he goes. Now, some of these guys maybe could have made a play, but he's so small that it's hard to really see the angle on the kid.
I don't think 21's hustling right
Well,
now.
He might not be, but honestly, not a dry eye in the house. Great moment for that kid and his family, and a good idea from Nebraska.
There were actually some people that posted online that weren't happy about this happening.
Well, those people should be run over with a Buick.
That's right. What can you not be happy about? You made this kid's life as he battles brain cancer.
It's a spring game.
Never mind his day, you made his life.
It's a spring game that nobody cares about. I will reiterate, if you're one of these people who on the internet posted something, we should run you over with a Buick. Nick, your thoughts?
I agree. We'll talk more spring ball. Barrett Sallee from the Bleacher Report when we come back. Like an enclave, a
Maybe
Skylark.
something, an SUV, something you can really kind of roll over them on. Just a thought.
What about
Stopped at a DUI roadblock and don't know what to do? I'm defense lawyer Ray Giudice, and I've got the app for you. My new app has everything you need to know before, during, and after you've been charged with a DUI. With one click, your text alert comes directly to my cell phone, and then I take it from there. Download my new DUI app today and get the aggressive defense you deserve.
Zero Res, America's true zero residue carpet cleaning service. Zero Res is guaranteed clean and safe for your children and pets with no waiting required. And our cleaning solution is so pure you could drink it. Zero Res only works with safe alkaline water, never with any abrasive chemicals. Now through Wednesday, have 3 rooms cleaned for just $129, plus get the 4th room free. Guaranteed clean, guaranteed safe, guaranteed zero residue. See us now at zeroresatlanta.com.
Now back to the Dantannas Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice, featuring the Knights of Cellini Kick Line and the Chernoff Dancers.
And welcome back to the Late Shift. With all the spring football going on around the Southeast, we figured why not hone in on what happened in Athens. Barrett Salise, the lead SEC writer for BleacherReport.com, he was there between the hedges. He was on the field. You didn't see him, but he had a chance to see the Georgia offense, the Georgia defense during their spring game. He joins us right now in the Zero Res Hotline. And Barrett, let's start with that Georgia offense. A lot of pieces, a lot of excitement. Can Georgia's offense live up to the hype?
Yeah, it absolutely can live up to the hype. You didn't see a whole lot of Todd Gurley. You saw a little bit more of Keith Marshall, but that offense with Aaron Murray, with the receivers and the chemistry he developed this spring, I think Georgia's offense is going to set a few records in 2013. They're going to be really good. I think you saw a kid in Jonathan Rumph, a JUCO kid, pretty highly contested recruiting battle. He emerged in the spring game as a legitimate weapon. I think you saw how good he can actually be, and that's big for Georgia because Michael Bennett was out with the ACL injury, still recovering from that from last season. Malcolm Mitchell didn't play. He got hurt late in spring practice. So Aaron Murray getting some chemistry down with some other players, the Chris Conleys, the Rhett McGowans, the Justin Scott Wesleys. That's what it takes for him to step up and be an elite quarterback because this offense is going to be strong. We know that. But now it's going to be diverse as well. And I think because of that, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Georgia's offense is a legit group, and Aaron Murray is going to be a Heisman contender. There's no doubt about it.
Barrett, were you surprised that Aaron Murray decided to come back? And what does it mean, not only his return for Georgia, but for quarterback play in general in the SEC?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked he came back. I think you saw at ESPN set at the Sugar Bowl, Aaron Murray said he had a second or third round grade. Turning down second or third round money is not an easy thing to do, but I think you heard Aaron Murray in the offseason sort of indicate that the fire from losing the SEC championship game in the way that Georgia did still burns in him. I think that's a real goal. He wants to win a championship, and I think that's a big factor in him coming back. I was surprised, and I think because of that, the SEC's quarterback, he's leading the charge. I think A.J. McCarron is going to be on the fringe of some Heisman discussions as well. I think Zach Mettenberger at LSU is going to have a pretty darn good season. Not a lot of other people do, but I still think he's set up. But Aaron Murray's leading the pack. There's no doubt about it. This guy's an elite quarterback, and I said after the game, I'm picking him to be in New York as a finalist for the Heisman. He is that good.
Barrett, the running game, pretty good as well. Todd Gurley had a huge freshman season. How high is his ceiling?
Oh, real high. He's going to be the workhorse again, but with Keith Marshall, they can keep those guys fresh, and I think that's going to be the key. They can mix and match Keith Marshall and Todd Gurley in, throughout the game. That way Todd Gurley can come in the fourth quarter and be that battering ram and close games, and I think that's a luxury that not a lot of teams have, maybe outside of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Georgia's the only one in the SEC. So, that running game, Todd Gurley, great freshman year, but I think the best is yet to come. Statistically, he may not be up where he was last year. I don't think he will be. I think you'll see him split some more time and them, sort of give him breathers throughout games. But there's no doubt about it. It's going to be a punishing rushing attack.
Barrett, let's talk about Todd Grantham's young defense. I think it could be a blessing in disguise because I think they're not willing to admit it, but maybe some of these guys about midway through the season last year that are going to the NFL were already to a certain extent thinking about the NFL.
Yeah, I think you can make that case. You look at Georgia's defense from last year, it's star-studded with the Jarvis Joneses and the Alec Ogletrees and the John Jenkins. The dirty little secret is that they weren't really good last year. They were flat-out awful against the run, 12th in the SEC. That's not good enough. Jarvis Jones looked like he was on skates the last few games of the season. The guys this year, I think, are better suited to do what Todd Grantham wants to do, and to stop the run, you got to play downhill. Jordan Jenkins is a little bit bigger outside linebacker. I think he fits that scheme a lot better. You saw a guy, Ramik Wilson, played really, really well in the spring game. He can make tackles in space. I think Marlon Herrera stepped up to a leadership role last year. I think that'll only continue. And then, the new kids in the secondary, Josh Harvey-Clemens played a little bit last year. Trey Matthews, the early enrollee from this year's recruiting class. Those two guys are legitimate SEC stars. I think you saw that in the spring game. And I think, and in Trey Matthews' case, I don't think I'm out of line in saying That guy's a legit all-SEC candidate as a true freshman in 2013. He's that good. So, yeah, I think Georgia's defense will be much improved last year, despite the fact that they don't have all those all-stars.
Barrett, the biggest story in the SEC this last week, well, actually two stories about Auburn. One, Selena Robertson, her piece where she alleges academic fraud, at least from former players, players getting paid, drug use, and then we have the ESPN the magazine piece and the E60 TV special that comes out about 6 months of an investigation about synthetic marijuana use. Anything here for the NCAA to look into?
They'll look into it, but nothing will come of it. Auburn's overcome a lot worse, and there's always three sides to every story. To Auburn's detriment, they've sort of let their side sort of remain hidden. They came out firing with the ESPN piece with synthetic marijuana and basically picked it apart within 24 hours of its release. I think the NCAA will look at it, but Mark Emmert even commented on it when he was down here in Atlanta for the Final Four that he was pretty dismissive of the idea of Selena Roberts' case, and even that has sort of fallen apart. And to me, honestly, that felt, when I read it, more like a desperate plea from Mike McNeil to paint a positive picture of himself for a potential jury pool. And then we find out, 3-4 days later that he ultimately pleads guilty after maintaining his innocence to armed robbery charges for 2 years. So I don't think anything will come of it. Auburn's overcome a lot worse. If anything does, I would be really, really floored. Unless something new comes out. The problem with this is that it's going to open the door for a lot of other people to go back in there and start digging around, lots of journalists, and the NCAA doesn't like to do its own work. It wants people to do its work for it. So maybe something else comes out, but the information in Selena Roberts' piece, I don't think it's going to amount to anything NCAA-wise.
All right, Barrett, great information. We'll read you at thebleacherreport.com, and I'm sure we'll talk to you down the road. Thanks for joining us.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Barrett Sallee, lead SEC writer for thebleacherreport.com. Coming up next, a trip to the NFL world. Steve Weiss from the NFL Network talks all things Falcons and National Football League next on The Late Shift.
Sheila Kelly has long had a fiery reputation among her peers. But this week, Outside the Lines obtained practice video showing exactly...
there is Melissa McCarthy, the host of SNL this past week, doing her takeoff on the Mike Rice situation at Rutgers. It's our Zero Res Mess of the Week. And speaking of messes... If you have a mess at home, well, don't pick up a bat and start striking people. Don't throw bricks at people. Do this. Call 770-242-1313 or check them out at ZeroResAtlanta.com. There is the special, the Late Shift special offer. $129 gets you 3 rooms and a hallway on the house. Zero Res Carpet Cleaner, you spell it backwards, forwards, doesn't matter. It's the right way to clean. If you want to follow us on Twitter, there's where you need to go, at Dantannas LS. Also, like us. Follow us on Facebook. Well, speaking of Zero Res, it's the Zero Res Hotline. Steve Weiss from the NFL Network joining us on it right now as we talk some National Football League. And, Steve, let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. Tyson Clabo last week, given his walking papers, is it a surprise to you? And now, what did the Falcons do?
Well, I was surprised because, one, he's been such a solid player for them for several years. And because, look, they're getting ready to extend Matt Ryan, you would think you'd want to keep that offensive line intact, one that's been pretty good. So I understand they cut Clabo to create cap room, in part to pay Matt Ryan. Maybe Clabo will be back. You never know. But I was surprised at the time when they did let him go because he's been a fixture on that right side for a couple of years.
Steve, you mentioned the Matt Ryan deal. I guess, I've asked a lot, and you and I have talked about this on the radio as well. I'm just as confused as to why the deal wouldn't be done already to allow yourself some more cap flexibility.
Yeah, they must have a plan because, when I was talking to Mike Smith, the head coach at the league meetings, it sounds like it's going to get done, but they're not necessarily going to rush it. I do think it gets done before training camp starts. I don't know what they're necessarily waiting for. If they want to take care of the draft first, if they want, the personnel department wants to keep its focus on the draft, and they'll get to it afterwards. That's understood. But it's going to get done. I don't know if they see it as a need to rush to get done because the numbers probably are what they are. It'll average around $20 million, I would assume. The timing of it, who really knows? But it does sound like it's going to get done in the next couple months.
Hey, Steve, the Jets don't seem to be in any rush to move Darrelle Revis. There was talk of him playing down here in the Southeast with Tampa, but the Buccaneers seem like they're getting aggravated now.
Yeah, you can understand why. There are reports that the Bucs are willing to send the Jets a first-round pick, which is 13th overall. And the Jets have not actually bitten. You can understand why they'd get aggravated to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if a deal doesn't get done soon. For Tampa to pull that offer. Frankly, I don't think the Jets, from people I've spoken with, the Jets are really trying to trade Revis. Like they'd like to have him, but they understand they've got to shop him. They're asking for probably a little bit more. Maybe they come back to Tampa and say, okay, we'll take that 13th overall pick. I'd give the Jets 9 and 13. He gives them a lot of juice in the draft. But it's interesting now just how New York really has not bitten. And it'll be interesting to see what the next move is from Tampa Bay.
Steve, we have a couple of seconds left. You mentioned the draft. I don't know why I'm getting this feeling, but anybody else believing that Jacksonville might jump at Geno Smith to take a shot at a versatile quarterback with the league's direction?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I have heard that they want to fix their quarterback situation. They're not sold on Blaine Gabbert. Wouldn't stun me. Some people say, why don't they use the first pick in the second round to get Geno Smith? You don't know if he's going to be there. So you got to make the move when you have the pick. And use that high pick in the second round to get the position player someplace else that you want.
All right, Steve, we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll catch up after the NFL draft on April the 25th.
Sounds good, guys.
All right, there is Steve Weish from the NFL Network on the Zero Res Hotline. When we come back, what is the spice? Ray Giudice, our legal eagle, explains.
Don't
judge me.
That was uncomfortable.
Stopped at a DUI roadblock and don't know what to do? I'm defense lawyer Ray Giudice, and I've got the app for you. My new app has everything you need to know before, during, and after you've been charged with a DUI. With one click, your text alert comes directly to my cell phone, and then I take it from there. Download my new DUI app today and get the aggressive defense you deserve.
Now back to the Dantannas Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice with the Cellini All Cello Orchestra and the Chernoff Improvisational Mimes.
Speaking of minds, we have one of the great legal minds around. Yes, he is our man on retainer, Ray Giudice, to talk about all things legal in the world of sports. And Ray, it was a controversial week for the folks at Auburn. They always have to seemingly defend themselves. And now we have the Selena Roberts piece first and then the ESPN magazine piece, which I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
The accusation of synthetic marijuana, the spice, as Mr. Cellini called it. First of all, let's talk about that. And I guess legally, what could be repercussions with that before we talk about other lawsuits?
Well, they violated no laws. No criminal statutes at the time in 2010 prohibited the sale or the use of spice, which is synthetic marijuana, goes under lots of names, K2, spice, bunch of others. Yeah. It's an herb that's sprayed with some chemicals. It's a derivative of marijuana.
All right. So that's one part of it. The other part is in this Selena Roberts piece, there was a mention of Will Muschamp specifically paying a player. If you're Will Muschamp, is that reason to hire counsel and say, you know what, you mentioned my name here, I can sue you?
Well, I would, and I'd send a letter out that says, if you don't have anything to back this up, but he better be careful that she doesn't have something to back it up, because this story is not only breaking, but people are going like this. There's people that are being convicted of felonies from the series of alleged robberies that some of these guys were using spice. They're going to turn on anybody. A drowning man or a drowning college football player will latch a hold of anybody and drag them down with them. So
well, you saw it. Don't do that when it comes to the spice, because it's also hallucinogenic to a certain extent, is it not?
It's bad for you. Yeah. There's no upside
for somebody's face.
I mean, there's some studies, and I'm not supporting this, that hemp is actually good for you, has some medical for cancer patients and things like that. Spice has no upside. but going to jail.
The only spice I know is oregano, and I do a lot of it.
I'm on spice and hemp right now. I'm higher than a kite. Let's talk about the Masters badges.
Right.
And the concern for counterfeit badges. How can we tell if it's a counterfeit badge? What should we be wary of if we want to buy a Masters badge?
Well, where we grew up, if things fell off the back of the truck, right away that sort of meant that it wasn't your, the most legal activity that occurred. So when you're going to buy one of these, you want to make sure it's through an approved vendor. These tickets are encrypted with all kinds of technology, just like money and your credit card nowadays, so they can be checked. It's a felony to sell these tickets counterfeit because of the pricing. There's scalping laws in Augusta. It's got a 2,700-foot radius from the front steps. There's people getting arrested day and night. It's a real money builder for the city of Augusta.
All right, Ray. Always great to hear from you and great to get in touch with Ray. A lot of ways to do it on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn as well, and you can call him. You see his great commercials running to get in touch with him for any needs you might have. I want to thank Steve Weish for joining us from the NFL Network. Thanks to Barrett Sallee from thebleacherreport.com. Hopefully, Nick, the spice will wear off soon. Don't take your clothes off. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next week on the Dantannas Late Shift.
Where'd my spice go?
Zero Res, America's true zero residue carpet cleaning service. Zero Res is guaranteed clean and safe for your children and pets with no waiting required. And our cleaning solution is so pure you could drink it. Zero Res only works with safe alkaline water, never with any abrasive chemicals. Now through Wednesday, have 3 rooms cleaned for just $129, plus get the 4th room free. Guaranteed clean, guaranteed safe, guaranteed zero residue. See us now at zeroresatlanta.com.